Okay, I'm back. Hello. All right, so by a show of hands, how many of you have downloaded the F8 app? Yay. All right, great. I see that there are a few of you in the audience that haven't. If you haven't, please make sure to download it. It is available on iOS and Android, and you'll get the latest updates on everything that's happening at the conference, including cool push notifications. You probably saw we have Chance the Rapper coming tonight. Yeah, are you guys excited about that? Excellent. Also build a personalized schedule and also watch all of the sessions on demand if you actually missed it. So anyway, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Mike Booth, who leads development team building Facebook's first social VR product, Facebook Spaces. Mike joins Facebook from a long career as a game developer and entrepreneur, creating award-winning multiplayer online experiences at EA, Turtle Rock, Blizzard, and Valve. Let's give a warm F8 welcome to Mike.
Thank you. All right. Put this right here. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. I am really excited that we have launched Facebook Spaces today. So I want to just walk you through how we built it and why we built it. All right, so primarily, Facebook Spaces is about you and your friends. And the key thing here is it's about really feeling like you are there in person with your friends. That's the thing that VR brings that's fundamentally different from any other experience before this one. So it's about bringing you and your friends together. It's also about the space that you meet and what that space looks like and how that space works. And then once you and your friends are together, what is it you do? How do you spend quality time together? So we're going to walk through these three things today. So where did this all start? So at E3 in 2015, before I had joined Facebook, I was able to get a demo of the Oculus Toy Box experience. And the great thing about this was the demo was given to me by Jason Holtman, who's a friend of mine, and he and I had worked at Valve together, so I knew Jason. What blew my mind, and I have seen all of the video games, all of the super high fidelity 3D environments out there, but what blew my mind with the Toy Box demo was here is a static blue mask and disembodied blue hands, but oh my God, it's Jason. Like, he's right there. That's amazing. I totally believe he is right there. I was literally speechless coming out of that demo as I tried to process that, but this was the core of where social VR for me has come from, of how can we take this experience and make it better. So from there, this is an experiment I did when I first joined Facebook, sticking together a bunch of cubes in Unity just to try to see, like, can we make an avatar that can make eye contact and can sort of emote? So from this experiment, the answer is yes, but also that this is really, really creepy, and we never want to see this guy in VR ever. So we hired some real artists, and they built these early stylized humans. These are actually not that far off from where we landed, but there were a couple things that were just really off-putting. The uncanny valley, which is basically, as you get more realistic, things get more believable until you get almost perfectly real, and then they get really, really creepy. That's the uncanny valley. And unfortunately, these guys fell into it a little bit. Their eyes were a little bit too big, a little bit too bulbous, but what really killed it was their mouth. Something about the mouth and the way it smoothly moved as it interpolated was just really wrong. So we learned some interesting things from these humans. So while we were developing the humans that you saw, one of the artists had gone off and done a really, really stylized, basically cartoon. It was just black and white. And we loved it. So we ended up sort of pushing on that and creating what we ended up calling the Rabbitar. So a number of things with this guy. So his eyes are two-dimensional, but they're very expressive, and you could still feel like you're making eye contact with this guy. You'll notice he has a body and he has arms. Those are inferred based on where the touch controllers are, right? And he can emote. Like we're making these gestures, and the gestures are cueing the various emotions. So this was really like several experiments in one that really proved that this direction was going to work well. That said, this is Facebook, and Facebook is about your authentic identity, and I'm not actually a giant orange rabbit, so this wasn't actually going to work. So we went sort of back to the drawing board for F8, and we took the toy box heads, and we had an artist at Facebook basically make caricatures of us using those heads. So this time, last year, this is what Facebook Spaces looked like. From there, we continued to iterate, and we basically brought together the things we had learned from that F8 demo and the toy box and the Rabbitar, and that ended up in these avatars that you saw back in October at Oculus Connect 3. So you can see that we landed on a very stylized look, but it's a human, and it's recognizable, hopefully, as a version of me. Maybe a version of me that's 10 years younger and doesn't have quite as much white in his beard, but it's hopefully me nonetheless. And that leads us to our current avatars today. And again, like the eyes in particular, going back to that Rabbitar, bringing in those stylized 2D eyes, and just generally polishing the features. Our goal here is charming, friendly, inviting, recognizable. So what did we learn from this? We came up with what we call our golden rule for avatars. You should be happy with the way you look. This is you, after all. Right? This isn't really, I keep using the term avatar, it's kind of a gamer technical term, right? But this isn't really your avatar, this is you. When you're in VR with your friends and they look at you in the eye, they're seeing this. So you should certainly be happy with how you look. Also, your close friends should recognize you. So in particular, it's your close friends. Because this is stylized, not everyone in the world is going to look at that and go, oh, that's Mike Booth, right? As if everyone in the world would know who I was anyway. But your close friends should see you like in a lineup, they'd be able to pick you out and say, oh, that's Mike. So we have a lot of leeway there with the stylization. So we have these avatars, we landed on this nice stylization, and we have all these parts and pieces that work, but how do we actually create this? How do we make a version of you when you log into Facebook Spaces? So we use the magic of machine learning. So what we're doing here, this is an example of our first attempt. We basically have this mirror, and we have a few photos of you. Because you log into Facebook, we can grab a couple of tagged photos of you and let you pick one of those. But what we do here in this first attempt is as soon as you touch one of the photos, we pick the highest guess. The machine learning makes its best guess, and that just appears in the mirror in front of you. So for instance, Brian pokes his photo, and then poof, there he is. Now, what we found was that people found this a little bit jarring because suddenly in the mirror is this avatar and it starts mirroring your movements. This could be really charming, but if the guess wasn't perfect, it could also be a little upsetting. And it felt like a judgment. It felt like Facebook was saying, this is you. And that was not our intention. Our intention is we're just trying to reduce the friction and make it easy for everyone to get into VR and connect with their friends. So here's a case in point for me in this early experiment where I would grab that and it generated this guy. So, all right, it's fine. Clearly, I'm losing a little bit of hair. My hairline is receding. That's fine. But I'm not that bald. So another thing we learned is that we really want to err on the side of sort of aspirational, make people feel a little better, let's not include things like, give me a little more on top. So, lessons learned. So where we have landed is we give you these 6 photos, and when you grab one, we generate the top 5 guesses from that photo. And then you get to look at them and pick one that you think is interesting, and then when you touch that guess, that embodies in the mirror. This changes the framing of how people think about this. This is no longer a judgment of like, this is you. This is, Facebook is offering, here's some ideas, here's some guesses of what we think you might look like, and you get to choose which one of those, and so it becomes your choice. Now, ideally, the flow is you do exactly that. You log into Facebook, you put your headset on, you see the mirror, you grab a photo, you tap an avatar, and you're done. But if you are unhappy with any aspect of your avatar, you can go in and touch any feature in the mirror and change it. because at the end of the day, you have the final say on how you look. Okay, so now we're generating these avatars. So you have a nice stylized version of you. How do we bring these avatars to life? So there's a couple of things. Right off the bat, we get this lovely biological emotion, right? So this Facebook Spaces right now is for the Oculus Rift and Touch. And what that gives us is it gives us the position and rotation of your head and each of your hands. So what you can see here in this example, so these are just dots. These are just dots moving on a background. But because these were motion captured from a person walking, you can't help see a person walking. This is biological motion capture, basically. We get the same thing with the headset in the hands. So the thing that blew me away with Jason in the original Toy Box demo is the way he moves his head when he talks, how he gesticulates, how tall he is. When he listens to me, how he nods his head or doesn't. That all just comes through, and we get that biological motion that's applied to your avatar, as well as your voice comes through as well. So we're also doing a bunch of things that we're inferring. So we don't actually know where you're looking, but we do some very simple things where, depending on which direction your headset is pointing, we grab a couple of obvious attention targets and lock your virtual eyes onto them. So this lets you make actual eye contact with your friends in spaces. And the great thing is, because we've chosen this stylization, it feels like you're actually making eye contact with your friend, which I think is critical for social VR. It also makes for really fun selfies when you focus on like this microphone in front of my face and bring it up close and then take a selfie. So also, lip sync. So this is a case where we're listening as you talk. There's a little microphone, and we're obviously sending that through to your friends, so you can just talk using your normal voice. But we're processing that vocal stream and inferring the mouth shapes from that and animating your mouth. So you'll notice that this isn't perfect, and it's actually snapping from viseme to viseme, from mouth shape to mouth shape. That's intentional, because number one, that stays with the stylization of the character, but number two, it stays out of the uncanny valley. Again, that thing we learned from the early stylized humans. And so here's an example of what I mean by visemes. If you've ever seen like Wallace and Gromit or Aardman or Leica, they do the same sort of thing. We have these mouth shapes and we just snap between them. So it definitely lets you know who is talking, and it looks appropriate. Additionally, we give you ways to be expressive and emotive. So in this case, this is demonstrating what we're calling gestural emotes. This is an experiment that we're doing in our beta right now. So bringing your hands up and turning them over like this automatically makes your avatar's expression confused. Similarly, you can be skeptical by bringing a finger up to your chin. And if you bring your hands up to your cheeks, then you can be like, oh my God. Oh my God, I'm at F8. And then bringing your hands near your temples will make you cry. This clearly needs giant fountains of cartoon tears to fly out of their head. Again, it's beta, work in progress, we'll get there. So we give you another way to emote as well. You can use the thumbsticks on your touch controllers to emote. So in this case, if you hold your thumbsticks up, your avatar will laugh. So there's a couple reasons for this, but one reason is there's also not an obvious gesture for laughing. But holding your thumbsticks up will make you laugh. Thumbsticks out will make you smile. One thumbstick up, one thumbstick down will strike the confused pose. Skeptical is both thumbsticks one way or the other. And again, you can bring the thumbsticks together. Oh my God. Right? So, it turns out that selfies, we'll talk about this more, but selfies are super fun. Now there's two great things about this. One, this validates that all of these different things we're doing with your avatars and emotions and expressions and whatnot are interesting enough to take selfies of. But the reason I put this here is the gestural emotes are a lot of fun, but if you want to make a face for your selfie, you need to be able to do it without moving your arms. So you can use your thumbsticks to strike those poses when you take a selfie, because you can't go like this when you're holding your selfie stick. All right, so continuing with the social VR, important things here. If you actually reach out and make quote-unquote physical contact with a friend in VR, our system should recognize that and celebrate that. So we're starting to experiment with things like this. This is a fist bump. So you can actually, yeah, dude, that was awesome. Pow. And your fist will actually make contact. You can hear the thump. You can also high five. So we're starting to add some fun particle effects too. Yay, high five. One more time. Yeah. All right. And then the thing I'm most excited about is you can actually shake hands. So if you're meeting with someone, you can shake their hand, hello. But the other side of this is you can actually just hold hands. So you reach out and you just hold hands. Oh, look, he's bashful. Speaking of that, at the Game Developers Conference recently, we were showing some game devs this whole system. And my producer, Alicia, was back at Menlo Park demonstrating with this gentleman at the Game Developers Conference. And there was a bug in our software at the time that made the hands really sticky. They would just want to stick together and do this. So he put on his headset and he found himself like face to face with this woman that he didn't know, holding hands, looking her deeply in her eyes. And he involuntarily blushed. How awesome is that? You can't fake that. That's real right there. And when he took off his headset afterwards, he's like, I feel like I need to tell my wife about that one. So that is real social VR. Okay, so now that you are there and your friends are there, where do you actually meet? So let's talk about our space and how we ended up with our current one. So an early experiment that we did is this sort of clubhouse. And you see we can wander around this space and there are different tables and different activities to do. This was what we assumed we would do right off the bat. And it's really cool. I mean, all these things I'm going to show you, I think there's nuggets of just really awesome things to do there. But this had a host of issues, not the least of which is locomotion. We know locomotion is challenging in VR. And frankly, if I want to just meet my friends and hang out and do things with them, I don't necessarily need to locomote. The other thing was, though, is people just disperse. And now we have this new problem of how do we decide what to focus on? How do we get people together? How do I even know where you went? Did you go upstairs or you in another room? I don't know. It was a distraction. Similarly, we tried this fishing experiment, which it's beautiful, right? And fishing is great, it's wonderful, it's social. But in this particular implementation, folks literally got lost in the woods. You can't really tell, but way over on the other side of the lake is the other avatar, right? And we had, appropriate fall off of voice, so you'd have people going, "Hey, where'd you go? I'm over here." It was not working for what we were trying to do. We also experimented with decorating your space. So this is something that everyone was described to us. Man, in VR, I want to have my own space, and I want to decorate it and change colors and populate all this sort of thing. And this is really cool. Like, I love you can put down a chair and stretch it into a sectional and push it over there and whatnot, right? Again, for our core mission of just connecting your friends and letting you get right in there and socialize, this was a distraction, right? For you to land in this space, be forced to be an interior decorator and then have your friends come over and evaluate it was not core to the mission. So, where do we end up? This is where we landed. And we'll go through all of this stuff. But it's basically this sort of dinner party for your close friends. So 4 of you around this sort of table. There are discoverable and reasonably easy to use systems for interacting and controlling the space, for viewing your content, etc. But fundamentally, it is about starting with your friends. So let's talk about user interface in VR for a little bit. This was kind of our stealth feature. Honestly, it's super fun and generally pretty easy to come up with, like, let's make markers. We can draw things in midair. It'd be so fun. And we can build those really quickly and do all these really shiny looking things. But then when we actually got to things like, how are we going to control 360 videos once they're displayed in the space? How do I find my friend? How do I make a video call? All these sort of nuts and bolts, the UI was hard. It's really hard. And I am not saying that our UI is the answer. It is an answer, but it was hard and took a lot of iteration. So let's walk through this. We started with a watch. Because the first thing that everyone does when they get into VR, at least with hand controllers, is they go, ooh, look, I have hands. And so if they do this and they turn their hand over, they go, oh, I have a watch. And then the UI comes off of the watch. It's very discoverable. We have a good place to start. People can get a hold of that. The problem is it's not scalable. Once we started to try to put everything on the watch, then you get this sort of cascading menus, and it's hard to hold your hand steady and try to meet things in the air. It wasn't going to scale, so we had to find something else. So we moved to a tool belt, and we were actually using a variant of this at OC3. So this basically was a belt that would appear about here. Like you'd look down and it would just appear and have all these tools on it. It was pretty cool and worked in a lot of ways. But it was kind of awkward, and generally people were sort of poking their crotch areas, and it didn't look great from third-person perspective. So we moved on from that to what we call the VR Buddy. And so this basically is a little sphere that would kind of float up next to you, and you would poke it and it would explode into tools that you could use that way. But it had all the standard problems of these sorts of little agents that float in space. And at the end of the day, it felt like, hey, it looks like you're in VR. How can I help? What we ended up with is this dock that's basically a tablet on the table in front of you. Maybe not as flashy as some of those other ones, but it's very recognizable. People understand, oh, it's a tablet. I know how to interact with this right off the bat, which is totally what we want. So some other paradigms we experimented with. You saw this actually last year at F8, where we take a photosphere and we put it on our face, and poof, we're in the space. This actually works super well and has really nice control, because you can actually orient the sphere to have just the right angle that you want, and then put it on your face so it's facing the right way. The problem is this wasn't super discoverable. They might accidentally go, ooh, this is pretty, whoa, but most people didn't understand that that's how you display content, is to shove it into your face. So we built this display center into the middle of the table, and this basically is, again, the paradigm of kind of a dinner party, right? The center of the table is sort of the main focus area. So if you take one of these 360 photos and you put it in the center of the table, then it displays to the space. And we ended up using that paradigm for all displayable content. You can take anything and put it in the middle of the table, and it will do the right thing if it's displayable content. But because the putting it on your face was so useful, we kept both paradigms. So we basically have a discoverable way for everyone, and then for advanced users who know the trick, they can shove things on their face. All right, the table itself. This is what our table looked like this time last year. Super literal. In fact, on the left-hand side there, you see our incredibly advanced user interface for navigating photospheres. We had a bowling rack with exactly 4 images on it, because those were the 4 images that Shrep and I were going to walk through for his keynote. We had some markers on the table, and then we had the magic of after we took a selfie, we had a little mailbox that would appear. This is extremely literal, right? There's no UI here at all. So it got us in the right place of saying we need to have a table, but it was a very early state. So where we've ended up, as I've described, we have this circular table, we have a display center, we've got your dock to control things. This is an example of what your Facebook feeds look like when you're navigating them, and we'll go into these in a little more detail. So this is a schematic of all of the UIs in Facebook Spaces right now. So beyond the dock and the table and display center, you also have your watch. We've talked about that. You have your wrist menu. So when you pick objects up, they have a context-sensitive menu you can interact with there. And then the big display. So any 2D content you put in that display center basically projects on a giant screen. All right, and these are the components of the current dock. So let's quickly walk through these. So the first one is obviously Facebook, your Facebook feeds. And this is interesting. We start with your saved content. This is something that we found really useful in that if you're on the web or you're on your mobile device and you're browsing Facebook and you see something really interesting like, oh, I got to show this to my friends in VR, you can just use the existing save feature of Facebook to save that post. The next time you're in VR, you press your Facebook button, and whatever you saved will appear here. So there's a really nice loop there of when you're out of VR, you can find cool things to show your friends next time you're in VR, and then when you're in VR, you can just pull them right out and show them. The other feeds are your timeline following and explore feeds. So timeline are things that you've posted, any 2D photo, 2D video, 360 photo or video. Following are things that are scraped from your news feed. And then explore is a curated set of 360 content that would be interesting to view in VR. The display center we've talked about. So the real question that remains here is, all right, we take this 360 photo, we put it in the display center, it's now surrounding us. Say it's a video, and it's like really loud. Like, how do we control that? Well, if you go back to your dock, anything that's been displayed, little thumbnails will appear at the bottom of the dock. You can tap those, and it brings up, for instance, information about the post from Facebook. You can react to it right there. You can adjust the volume. You can pause and play on your dock. So there are ways to control the content in your space. The current tools that exist, first is the mirror. Mirror is super simple, but we've had it since this time last year. It's one of those things where, especially for new users, being an animated cartoon is a novelty, and be able to see yourself in a mirror and understand that that's me and that's what I look like, this is how I move and how I emote, super useful. The marker, this again has been just really fun and super useful. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but basically the marker, you can doodle with it, but really it's a 3D printer. You can make 3D objects that you can actually use in the space. You can make things you can wear. You can make objects you can play games with. It's kind of really open-ended creativity. And then, of course, the selfie stick. The selfie stick, even in VR, when you point a selfie stick at people, they immediately strike a pose, they do something goofy, and best of all, you get a moment in time that then you can actually post out to Facebook and show your friends how awesome VR is. There's a drawing library. So again, with the markers, if you create things that are useful or fun, you can save them to use later in future sessions. If your friend made something cool, you can grab that drawing and save it, so that way the drawings can propagate throughout the community. And we've also included a set of useful drawings by default. So if you're not artistically inclined, there's a bunch of fun things to play with. There's like chess pieces you can play chess with and things like that. Your friends menu, ways to access your friends, see who's online in VR right now, or to video call them. Your appearance menu, this is what you see, as you saw earlier, this is what you see when you first land in spaces and make your avatar the first time, but you can always bring this back while you're socializing with your friends. So we can all be in the space, I can bring up my mirror and change my appearance in real time, all of us can. So, for example, we were watching this cool music video that this band had posted to Facebook, and we were rocking out, but I no longer have the appropriate hair to rock out, so I brought up my appearance menu and put on some long 70s hair and could appropriately headbang to the music. Your watch, the watch is the notification center. So if someone messages you while you're in VR, your watch will beep. You'll be able to look and see that message. You'll be able to respond to them and make a video call, for example. Anyone who's trying to join your space, any of those sorts of messages will show up on your watch. On the bottom side of the watch is a pause button. We'll talk about that briefly in a little bit, but that lets you basically pause the world. Any object that you pick up in this space has a context menu attached to it. So on the left, that's a photosphere. So if I wanted to, I could set that as my background. On the right, that heart is actually drawn with a marker. So you can see there, I can clear it, I can save it to my library, I can duplicate it and make lots of hearts. Every object you pick up will have its own set of controls. So because of the way that we've sort of stylized things, we don't have hard shadows, we don't have reflections, we don't have complex lighting in the space. It can be a little hard sometimes to gauge distances, so we've made our UI react to proximity. So as you move closer to buttons or as you move things closer, they will light up and react and help you gauge that distance and have a solid connection when you press the buttons. Video calling friends. So you bring up your friends menu. Any friend that you want to interact with, whether they're in VR or not in VR, you have the option to just video call them directly, and that will bring up a messenger window. Then your safety bubble. So basically, I'm just whipping through all of the different features that are on the dock at the moment. The safety bubble, this is something that by default everyone has. It's like a foot or so radius around your avatar. Because presence is so believable and powerful, we wanted to make sure that people didn't inadvertently or or intentionally get into your face and grief you, right? So anything that encroaches closer to about here will just turn invisible. So, you know, even though this is for your Facebook friends, we all have that one friend that we need this safety bubble for. Additionally, on this note, you can pause the world, as I mentioned. You can bring up your wrist and just hit pause. If you ever need to stop the world, I need to get off. Maybe someone has put up a 360 video of a roller coaster and it's not your thing. You just pause. Everything stops. Everything goes quiet. You'll have the ability to, kick that one friend out if you need to. You can mute people. You can change the content of the space, or you can leave. So you always have control of what's going on in VR. Okay, so now, we have these avatars. We have you and your friends. We have a space with controls so we can all gather together. What do we actually do in this thing? Well, we want to spend quality time, specifically personally meaningful quality time. It's hard to communicate the difference of being in VR with a close personal friend and experiencing content that you actually both care about. I mean, it's really cool to, visit, the Eiffel Tower or something, but it's much more powerful when it's the high school you both went to or something like that that's personally resonant. All right, we've talked about the selfie stick. Somehow it's easy to be goofy and fun in VR. People lose their inhibitions, they have a lot of fun. It's great to perform for the selfie stick, and it captures the moment in a wonderful way. Everyone understands the selfie stick. So your Facebook feed. So here's an example of what I was just saying. This is Brian, right? You can bring up a 360 photo of a place that you know and your friends know. You can share 2D videos and 2D photos. This is Brian's adorable dog he's very proud of. And that is, when you're with your friends, this sort of content is super compelling. Yes. That's a nice dog, Brian. All right. You can make a messenger video call, and so far everyone, it's been really fun as we've launched to call our friends that had no idea that we were in VR. Because they recognize us, and they recognize our voice, and we might even be against a photorealistic background, but we're a cartoon, and it's a lot of fun. But in a more practical way, it's a way for you to connect with your friends that are, whether they're inside VR or not. And in fact, I had a great experience. I was actually calling Rachel, who you saw in the keynote earlier. I didn't realize she was in VR while I was in VR, so I saw her avatar, and I said, well, hey, can I just join your space? And she said, sure. And I watched her avatar bring up her wrist and press a button, and then my world faded to black. It faded up, and I was right next to her. It felt like I went through the video call. It was awesome. So with these markers, you can do all sorts of things. You can play simple games like tic-tac-toe. You can play hangman, word games. So clearly, the word is snacks. No. The word would be spaces, because that's what we're launching. Right. You can play chess. And I wanted to point out here, like the things you draw with these markers, they're 3D objects. And you can save them and you can share them. So you can literally play a full game of chess and any other game any other board game like that. Collaborative design is awesome. This is an example of experimenting with the avatar creation system. Like maybe we have 4 images up there. Well, I don't know. Well, what if we have 6? You can just grab one of the drawings and duplicate it a few times and put it up there, and you rearrange things. Christophe Tazier and I have had great design experiences in VR together, just figuring out how all of this is going to work. And because you're together, you're collaborating, and it's 3-dimensional and just super intuitive to move things around. This is magical. I think 3D artists in particular are all going to be working in VR very soon. Tutoring. So I actually live in Southern California and commute up to the Bay Area every week. And my teenage son, if he has questions about math, for example, like we can jump in to Spaces. He can take a quick photograph of his worksheet and bring that into VR, and then we can just talk. I can look at the problems, and we can each have markers and just be drawing things out. And the great thing about this is you can communicate really complicated three-dimensional things this way because you're just in 3D and you can draw in any direction. And I can just imagine how awesome it would be to be taught, like imagine someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson teaching you like the cosmos in person. That would be amazing. I am a big fan of role-playing games and tabletop games. One of my personal goals for social VR is to be able to play, to get my weekly game night back with my friends that are now scattered all up and down the West Coast. So we have included these are actually dungeon wall pieces. This is included with the drawing library that comes with Spaces. So go out there and figure out how to play role-playing games in VR. And then rocking out with friends, this is always fun. Again, like you're less inhibited in VR. It becomes this sort of VR karaoke. You find, your favorite band posted the latest video of their latest song. You can put that up on the big screen. You can do some air guitar, and just rock out. It's a lot of fun. And then it seems one of the most fun use cases, we talked about this, is we've created the world's most social VR photo booth. So all of those drawings that you can make with your markers, you can stick them to your heads, you can stick them to your friends' heads, you can wear whatever crazy hats or ears or draw mustaches on each other, put whatever kind of environment you want up and take a photo and post it to Facebook. It's just kind of ridiculous fun. So that's where we are right now. Where are we going in the future? The thing is, we're just getting started. So this is, beta. We're putting this out because there are some interesting things to do, but we have lots of things we want to do in the future. So one of the things that we're thinking about is what Mark talked about at last OC3, which is this people-centric computing platform. So in this case, say I want to hang out with Rachel. So we meet up in VR and we're there in the space. And then we decide, hey, let's play pool. So instead of launching into a separate app, we have a way to bring a pool table into the space with us. So maybe that turns our table into a pool table, for example. All right, well, now we're playing pool. That's cool. Oh, well, we should be in a pool hall. Let's put up a 360 of a pool hall. That's too boring. How about we go into some cool back alley pool? Sure, why not? It's VR. So we're playing pool. Now we want to listen to music. All right, well, let's bring in a boombox that can, stream my favorite music streaming service. So, this is the kind of thing we want to do where these things come into the space and they combine together, right? So we're very interested in working with developers and talking to developers about the future of this sort of thing. We have no way to do this right now, but we are very interested in figuring out a way for third-party developers to be able to create interesting experiences and objects that we can bring into spaces to use together. Another thing to iterate is that Spaces is for everyone. Right now, this is the very early days of VR, and it requires a bunch of hardware and equipment. But the reason that we started with things like the Oculus Rift with touch controllers is that we're trying to come up with paradigms that will work for everyone when VR, at some near future, reaches the mass market. That everyone has access to VR the same way everyone has access to smartphones. So we're focusing on paradigms that will work for the current hardware, assuming that it will become ubiquitous at some point in the future. I know you probably heard this a million times today, but this is very literally true with Facebook Spaces right now. It's why we're labeling it as a beta. This journey is 1% finished. We have some really fun interactions. We have a million more things that we have planned, and we wanted to put this out so people could use it, and we could see what they do with it, and we could get feedback from people on where to go next. The Facebook dev team, these are all avatars of the Facebook Spaces dev team, is very excited for you all to go try Facebook Spaces right now. I'm sure you've seen on the show floor. You can go create your avatar, and there are booths set up to go in with a friend, hopefully, and try Facebook Spaces together. So to learn more, go to facebook.com/spaces. Go out to the show floor, find our booth, and here's a thing that I think would be great. Find someplace cool, go with your smartphone and take a panorama of that cool location, upload it to Facebook. So when you actually go into here with your friend, you can pull that 360 photo out and re-experience that thing together and see what I'm talking about, how easy it is to create these spaces and share them with your friends. So first, let me thank everyone for coming and listening to me rant. I am going to leave us with the Facebook Spaces launch video. So thank you very much.
Hey, sis.
Hey, Jack. Are you all excited for our trip?
Yeah, and look what I found.
This is so cool. Is this the same spot we're going to?
I hope so. And look, I think that's where we're taking the boat tour.
Oh, I love it. Look, I'm going to go chat with Melissa, but you're setting up the party room, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Great. See you later, Jack.
That's right.
All right, see you later.
Bye. Hey, girl. Guess what?
What?
I got the apartment.
Wow, nice. Look at your balcony.
I know, it's amazing. No roommates.
Thank you.
I have it all planned out. The lucky blue couch.
Yes.
This table with this floor.
Perfect. Jack keeps calling me. Can we talk later?
Sure.
Bye.
Happy birthday!
Thanks, you guys.
Happy birthday.
Oh, Scott, I don't like this song.
Okay, hold this balloon. You know we gotta do it. Birthday selfie.
Oh my God.
And don't forget your birthday hat.
Oh, that's a good one. Hey! Look at my birthday